Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jan Vogel, the CEO of Sentinel Youth Services and the South Bay Workforce Investment Board. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today, recognizing the premier restorative justice organization in Southern California, Sentinel Youth Services. Hey! All right, we're going to start things off in an unusual way today. We have Taylor Code and David Sanchez here, both alumni of the Streets Poets Writing Workshop in LA County Juvenile Probation Camp. Today, Taylor serves as a teaching artist and restorative justice advocate with Street Poets, facilitating writing workshops, trainings in many of the same facilities in which he was once incarcerated as a youth. David runs his own organic gardening business called Seed and Soul, planting organic gardens in schools and backyards from South LA to Beverly Hills and beyond. They would like to dedicate the original poems you're about to hear to all of the youth still struggling to find their voices in the juvenile detention facilities, streets, and prisons of America. For more information on Street Poets programs, go to streetpoetsync.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Taylor, David.
If you knew me, you would know. My father was a crack addict until liquor took its place. He used to come home late and diss mama in her face. My mother worked long hours to support his habit until one day she hadn't and booted him out. My role model was gone and all I knew was his route. I started smoking and drinking, shot my first gun without thinking, banging on city walls all the way to juvenile hall. Then I saw my first body drop. My heart stopped its original beat. Fear replaced by heat turned me into a numb human. For a while, I couldn't cry. My feelings died, only to be revived in jail. Life without bail, but they left out a nail off my concrete coffin. My little brothers often saw me as their pops because I was all they knew. Soon enough, they started drinking brew and smoking marijuana too. I cried in my cell before I went to sleep. In this wicked world, I was in too deep, dealing with my old demons. I questioned my old reasons for living and started forgiving myself for what I felt. Change came in waves. I found a way to write and read to help my heart maintain. I saw my mother cry and bleed, so I wanted to express that pain. My spirit was set free when I wrote my first poem. I know you can hear me. Now I can see clearly. Pen in my hand demanding the truth from what lies buried in my youth. Thank you.
I got so much rage in the bank, I'm living large off the interest. An investment trust account, reaping the perks of big business. But before I self-destruct and let the wealth tear me apart, let me splurge for a minute and get this burden off my heart. I don't know how to start because it's dark and runs deep. Back to that demon I first saw when my parents were both asleep. I swear it only seems like it was just yesterday when Pops threw Mama in the tub with blood gushing from her face. That was a quarter century ago, but I'm still hearing screams. In my cell yelling no because they echo in my dreams. Mama took me off to Texas when the dope took you under, and it was there I got molested, and my sunshine turned to thunder. Reflecting on these troubles, sometimes my tears become laughs, because you had the nerve to wonder why I chose to walk a dark path. My last hope was the streets, so I banged the local game, but that even took something I could never again claim. Can the Lord blame me for all the sins I've committed, or close the pearly gates because I lack the wisdom to do different? I wanted the world to feel the kind of pain I was feeling, so I robbed and pistol whipped a man in front of his own children. And to make matters worse, homie showed me love for that, celebrating all the hate that I now wish I could take back. Was it the Hal Doll and cocaine that ran through mama's veins, mixed with the dope and daddy seed that made me grow to be insane? When I felt the urge to change, my enemies cashed me out with slugs and left me leaking in the street, talking to God about peace. My scars tell a story that only pauses for effect as I choke off the gun smoke, praying to take another breath. I'd be lying if I said I never cried in my cell, because I'm forced to face the truth, walking the main line in jail. It's hell to be alone and prevail against these thoughts, but I'm thankful for the chance, because I was way too lost. I didn't know how good it felt to smile till I was on the verge of death, with 30 staples in my stomach and half a dozen in my neck. It's obvious that I'm blessed because I can still draw some breath, but it's also clear that I'm cursed to bear the burden of such stress. If I had to formulate the words to explain the world to my daughter, it'd probably take some Hail Marys and a fifth of holy water. Am I wrong for wanting to tell her these ugly facts we tend to hide? Or should I keep my mouth shut and hope she finds a way to rise? I treasure times like this when the truth invades my spirit. But the sad thing is, not too many want to hear it.
I'd like to recognize some very important people that are here today. First of all, Judge Donna Groman. Judge, big supporter, delinquency supervisor judge, LA County Superior Court. This is not only to celebrate our partners, but also to celebrate our funders. So I want to recognize a few of the funders. Our guardian angel, so to speak, Jackie Castor, president and founder of Every Child Foundation. Jackie. We also have Janae Oliver from the Kaiser Permanente South Bay. Janae, thank you very much. And Rose Venegas from the California Community Foundation. Rose, thank you. And we have Kevin Coleman from the LA County Dispute Resolution Program, a longtime funder. Thank you very much. We do have one board member here, Yvette Wedlow, who is representing Mayor Pro Tem Mark Henderson from Gardena. Yvette? Okay, with that, I'm going to introduce our Mistress of Ceremonies, the stick that stirs the coffee, CYS, Jessica Ellis. Take over.
Just a couple of memories I have. My dad would come home from his, I guess, split shift at 11 p.m. at night, and I would sneak out of my bedroom and go have hot chocolate with him. The other thing he was able to do was to get us on all the rides in Coney Island for free just by flashing his badge. You don't do that anymore. But anyhow, I love my dad. He's gone now, but I do owe it to him for a lot of things. So, we're all here today because we have the same goal. And that is, we want to see our kids thrive in their communities. We all want to be a part of that. We all want to promote community safety. So, how are we going to do that? Let me tell you how things play out in the youth justice system. And then we could talk about what really works. So a young person is cited by one of you officers for an offense. Let's say it's a nonviolent offense. Let's say felony vandalism, because the damage was over $400. This young person would be cited by the officer and come to court in 60 days. So we're already 2 months away from the incident. The case might have come to probation, but because it was a felony and that young person was 14 or over, they did not have the opportunity to divert that youth. That authority belongs to you, law enforcement. When it's not exercised and the case moves in the system, it moves very slowly. So we're creeping along at 60 days, the first date in court, the arraignment. The case gets continued, I would say, another 3 or 4 times On average, the attorneys need to work up the case, and I respect that. But on the other hand, time is ticking away. There's got to be a better way to do this. The young person also is missing school. The parents are missing work, and I can't tell you how many parents I've seen that come in afraid of being fired if they have to come to court again. But in all those times that the case is getting continued, that child's missing school and the parent's missing work. So it causes real financial burden on the family when they have to come to court. Our waiting rooms. Our waiting rooms are filled with kids, some high risk and some low risk, like that young person who vandalized the wall, and it was enough damage to be over $400. They're sitting in the same room together. Everything we know about evidence-based programs, you don't mix low risk and high risk youth. But that's the mingling that occurs in our waiting room. Sometimes fights break out, not often, but it happens. When I was at Kenyon Juvenile Justice Center, there used to be fights in the bathroom where nobody was able to see what was going on. But that happens in our court. One of the most important things that doesn't happen in our court is an opportunity for the victim to be heard. I rarely see victims in my cases. I don't know what the problem is. Some may be afraid to come. Some may not have the time to come. Some may have not gotten the information. I imagine sometimes when you get a letter from the probation department, you're not going to open it. You're going to throw that one away. So we don't see a lot of victims. If that victim gets to testify in a case, that victim answers questions. Yes, no, maybe gets to utter 20 words in a sentence, and then there's another question that's coming. And that's not a conversation. Wouldn't it be nice to give a victim the opportunity to have a conversation with that young person who offended him or her? But that doesn't happen in our court, nor do we collect restitution very much. So we're really doing a disservice to the victim in our court. There's got to be a better way. To me, the better way is to do restorative practices in the community immediately. When a young person gets in trouble, they need help immediately. They're probably having school issues, mental health issues, maybe issues at home, trauma issues. That child needs help now. Instead, we push them through the juvenile justice system where they might not even get referred until 6 months later. 6 months. Do they even remember what happened? And the orders that we make, the home on probation orders with the boilerplate conditions, 50 hours of community service, 100 hours of community service, might have absolutely no relationship to the crime that was committed or to the victim. So, I think the juvenile justice system should be reserved for those youth who are violent, who may be a danger to the community, and may need a residential treatment program. The other youth are better served in the community. So, I urge each of you in law enforcement to think about how you can carry out a pre-arrest diversion program. I've seen it work through Sentinel Youth Services. Actually, one of our employees in the court went through the program and was very happy. Her home had been burglarized. She didn't want that young person to have to go to court because she knew nothing would happen there. But she was very satisfied with the opportunity that she had to spend with that young person in a structured setting, in a mediation, and be able to relate to that person how she felt and hear from a youth why he or she did what he or she did. So people shouldn't be wondering, who is the person who broke into my house? Why did they break into my house? Are they going to break into my house again? My neighbor had her house broken into last night, and those are the questions she's asking. You don't get the answers to those questions if you don't practice restorative justice. And I think you will find a lot more satisfied customers and more meaningful consequences to that young person if that young person participates in a pre-arrest diversion program where that young person can craft his or her own consequences that are meaningful. So, Centinel Youth Services, I'm excited about their Juvenile Arrest and Diversion Collaborative, and I'm also excited that the Board of Supervisors has voted to create a countywide comprehensive and coordinated approach to youth diversion. This can promote a trusting relationship between law enforcement and our young people. I want our young people to have the same feelings of safety and security that I felt when I saw my father in his uniform. That's my ultimate goal here with the pre-arrest diversion. Community safety is based upon trusting relationships. And that trusting relationship comes when a law enforcement officer is there to help that young person get the services he or she needs. There's always an underlying reason why a crime was committed. We need to get to that reason immediately and provide services immediately. Our young people and our families cannot wait. Because I tell you, in the time that it takes for a case to get to my court, that young person may have committed another crime. So, immediate, appropriate, in the community. We shouldn't have people having to travel to courts and probation offices to get the help they need. Because in the court and the probation office, they're really not getting help, they're getting referrals. Why not provide those referrals to them in the community, in a place that they're familiar with, maybe the public school, maybe a community center, so that children don't have to miss school, parents don't have to miss work. That's the advantage of diversion in the community, without it going any further in the juvenile justice system. So, in closing, I would like you all to impart the gift of trust, safety, and security to our young people. Be there to protect them, to help them and guide them. And I would encourage every law enforcement agency in our very large county to participate in a pre-arrest diversion program. And I hope that this is the way we're going to move forward when we deal with young people who may have otherwise ended up in the youth justice system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Couldn't have said it better. So I wanted to talk a little about, we have a couple folks who are new here, so just a little background, but most of you have been working with us intensively. This particular collaborative is around pre-booking diversion, and so in this case, it's the first of its kind in the state of California. It was built on a model coming out of, very successful model coming out of Miami-Dade County, and we worked with the Los Angeles Police Department to really innovate this, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And so the agencies that are actively utilizing pre-booking diversion right now within the Los Angeles Police Department are all 4 stations in the South Bureau, and pretty much all 6 stations in the Valley Bureau. We're just getting ramped up there. They're all ready to go, and they're waiting for us to have enough staffing and volunteers going. And we're now talking, and then the Los Angeles School Police Department in those same areas overlapping LAPD, they refer, their cases come to us through LAPD, sending those on. And then Compton School Police came on board fast and furious with 50 cases in their first 5 months, I think. And then Inglewood School Police and Inglewood Police Department and El Segundo Police Department. And then we also have some agencies coming soon, Newton Division, the LA County Sheriff's Department, Hawthorne Police Department, and Huntington Police Department. So, and also part of our core collaborative membership that has been really overseeing and working through this whole project since 2011 when we started to develop it has been collaboration with input from the District Attorney's Office, the Public Defender, Probation, DCFS, as well as Public Counsel and the Every Child Foundation. And then we have lots of other partners who come in at different pieces to give some advice. So I think the Urban Peace Institute and the Children's Defense Fund have been helpful at different points as well. So moving on to awards, we wanted to do some special recognitions, and our first one is for an officer who really took this on from the beginning, and he really helped figure out how to talk to kids and parents about this, how to get them to understand it, understand the gravity of the opportunity, etc. And he was really sharing that with lots of other officers and really helped other departments and officers get on board with this, even outside of his own department. And he practically led Chief Wu from Compton School Police by the hand to us, personally brought him to us to introduce the program, as well as some other agencies. And so we really wanted to thank Officer Benny Ahuseo. Benny! We were trying to surprise him, so when we told him you have to be here, he didn't really get it. For going above and beyond and really spreading the word about this program and helping other agencies see it and come learn about it and get involved. So thank you very much. So come on up. It's okay, I'm sorry. We wanted to surprise you, so we didn't tell you you had to be here.
Oh, great.
Thank you for everything. He's going to kill me now. Thank you. And next up, we wanted to acknowledge a police department for which we would not exist if it weren't for them. So Sentinel Youth Services was actually started by some officers in the Inglewood Police Department who felt, you know what, I think these kids need some counseling and need some help instead of being arrested. And that really started off as just some officers doing exactly what we're doing now on their own. And then it grew to the point where they just couldn't manage it in their, on top of their workload. And so it extended into the Youth Services Department, which became a separate nonprofit housed under the city, and then later expanded to the whole valley, etc. And they just came on board recently with pre-booking diversion, but have really worked on what I call full saturation. So we did a data check to look at, of all the juveniles arrested during about an 8-month period, how many who would have qualified were actually referred versus slipping through the cracks and going on to the court system. And they had the top saturation. So all their kids who had, I think they had one slip through the cracks, and as soon as that happened, the detective was freaking out, coming to me, you gotta come back to our CO's meeting and make sure we gotta get them all. So they've been an awesome partner in that sense. Did Detective Gordon make it here today or no? Is our Inglewood team here? Woo, they're gonna get it. All right, so we'll just give them some applause and everything. Thank you. And one more in this little group, and then we'll move on to some other things. This for the most referrals, sort of per capita, in terms of volume. So like I kind of gave a teaser earlier, Compton School Police came out the gate. And really brought us in to do training with their team on trauma-informed practice, the teen brain, why kids do what they do, and what works to help get them back on track. And several members of their team call us constantly, and we really work closely together. The other thing we found is when an agency is able to, and I know you don't always have the manpower for this, but when you're able to work more in partnership with us, our success rates with the kids in the program go up. And they've been, normally across the board, our average is about 75 to 78% of the kids successfully complete the program. But at Compton, they hit 90% because they will roll out to the family's house if we're having cooperation issues, and that's been huge. So Chiku, will you come up? Thank you. Pictures. I also want to recognize some of our community partners, and there's so many. It's such an exhaustive list. I cannot get them all up here, but we really rely on connecting our kids into quality services that are within their neighborhood, so they're not having to travel far, and we look into who's really using evidence-based practices and really showing that they're being really effective. And one of our all-time faves is here. So Danielle, will you stand up, please? This is from Shields for Families. Has been a phenomenal resource in terms of really quality substance abuse treatment. They treat not only the kid but the whole family, and as well as mental health services from a really strong trauma-informed approach, and just a great partner, so thank you. And we also work closely with D.D. Hirsch and Children's Hospital and ADAP regularly for a lot of the mental health and substance abuse treatment support for our kids, as well as others. Starview is another great partner, and behavioral health services. Those are the ones, our mental health partners are the ones we lean on the heaviest. And then Rotary Club has been phenomenal in helping with volunteers in our restorative justice program. And so if a victim, like Target, as a corporation, is too busy and doesn't want to participate, as long as they don't mind, we'll ask if we can put in a surrogate victim. So a member of the community who's a business owner and can relate to theft to come sit in place and talk about how that theft or vandalism affects the community. And so Rotary has been great at providing surrogate victims for that as well. And Public Council, Lisa? Public Council has also been a big support in a lot of ways. We lean on them a lot. And I also, in particular, want to give a special shout out to the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, who provides job opportunities not only for our kids but their parents, and paid work experience programs. And he was not going to want to come to this, does not want to be public at all, but one of our kids who was referred through this program, in the juvenile arrest program, was just awarded a scholarship by the South Bay Workforce Investment Board to help further his education. And he really wants to be in music production, and he's really good at it, and so we're working on helping him get a computer that can handle that kind of production capability. So, thank you. And a lot of our university partners that are providing awesome interns, masters of social work and bachelors of social work interns who work very closely with our kids. And Tori, raise your hand. Tori is one of our superstar interns this year, masters of social work. Okay, so moving on, we're going to give one other award right now. So this goes to a whole team. So in pre-booking diversion, as I mentioned, there's still a crime report developed, and that is hanging over the kid's head for incentive and cooperation. However, one of our departments wanted to really get ahead of the game and really find a community supportive approach. How can we, when we see kids are heading off the right path, how can we even get ahead of that before we even get to the point of writing up a crime report? And so this team had this group of girls, there were like 6 of them, doing a bunch of pocket check kind of robberies out on the street, and they really could have built up a case of 19 counts of robbery against these girls, but instead called us in, as well as another community partner from the GRID program, to come and wrap these kids and families with support and intervention ahead of time, even before pre-booking. So looking at, here's what we know is going on, here's what we know you're doing, and let's get you into supportive services. And it really drew out, there was a lot of trauma and other kinds of things really going on in these girls' lives. One of them, her mom was hospitalized even at the time, and so it really gave an opportunity to take a whole different approach. And they're really working as a team to even look at some more ways internally to expand what they're doing with this. So I want to bring up the Southwest LAPD team. If you can come around here. I'm going to wrap around this way to look at the cameras. Great ideas.
Thank you.
And I wanted to invite one of you to, if you want to come up and share a little bit more about
Sure.
your thinking and what you guys are working on.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
I like it. It's nice. I should have put it over my head. But actually, this idea was a concept that was created through our robbery table. And like was mentioned earlier, there were a group of 6 girls that were involved in robberies around Dorsey High School. And we decided that instead of making the arrests, spending a lot of manpower on the whole investigation, was we already kind of knew who the players were, and we brought them in. We brought in the girls and their parents, and basically showed them kind of the evidence what we had, which were Facebook postings of them with other gang members, with displaying drugs, and a bunch of other issues that we could have actually had a very strong case on these girls, and probably impacted their lives in a negative way for the rest of their lives. But we wanted to try a different approach, and it was basically stop their actions there now, help them find a new direction in life, and also make sure we made the area and the community a lot safer. So we brought them in, and with the help of Sentinel Abuse Services, when we proposed the idea to them, they were all on board, and they came in within 3 days. I think we planned it all out. And then also the Community Build, which one of our intervention programs in Southwest. They also came in at last minute notice, and I believe the program is successful. As far as before that, we had in that area where these youth were going to school at, we had 6 robberies around that area within the first couple weeks before that. Since then, and this is back in the early December, we've had no robberies at all. Nothing at all. It just completely ended. So it's a great program. We have a couple other kids we identified over in Crenshaw High School, so we want to be able to expand and bring the program to the rest of South Bureau if we can. So thank you very much for the great.
Great. So we could not do this work if it were not for our volunteers. They really help give us legs in the community and help us serve many more kids than we could without them. So the way we use volunteers in a couple ways. I mentioned the surrogate victims earlier. The real heart and soul of our program, which is actually what the dispute resolution program helps make possible for us, is our mediations. And these are volunteers from the community who go through about 44 hours of intensive county certified training on how to be a mediator, both in family conflict, parent-teen conflict, as well as for victim-offender restitution, reconciliation meetings for restorative justice. And not only do they go through those initial classroom hours of training with lots of mock training mediations, but then they also get mentored and they apprentice with a more senior mediator, more experienced mediator for many mediations until they're really good to go. But even then, our volunteers co-mediate, so they always have a buddy with them to make sure everything's going well and to see a different perspective. And that really is the heart and soul of our program and our restorative justice piece, to really bring communication back into the family, bring a humane and deep conversation between the kid and the person that was impacted by their actions. And so I would like to introduce Larry Nathanson, who's been with us since 2008 as a volunteer mediator and serves as a surrogate victim. And he's what we call one of our superhero mediators, because he's done so much. He not only mediates in high volume for us, but also mentors new mediators and helps with our training. And he's a retired attorney and moot court judge, and an active volunteer and leader in his synagogue, where he's done a ton of work. I hear he may also get credit for introducing us to Judge Groman. And so I really wanted you to hear from Larry directly about what it's like to be in those meetings and facilitate those conversations. So Larry, would you come forward?
Thank you very much, Jessica. Actually, I just want to correct one thing. I've actually been doing this for almost 11 years. My training was in May of 2006. So that's a long time ago, and a lot of things have changed. But I do want to start by saying that before I came here today, I was not really fully aware of what all of you do in law enforcement and in other organizations that refer cases to us and help us put this together. When I'm doing mediations, I see it after you've done all your work and gotten the cases to us. So the details of how that happens are really not visible to me most of the time. So I just want to say thank you all for making it possible for these youth and parents and victims to have the opportunity to participate in this program. I also want to start by saying that as a practicing attorney, which I was for 22 years, most of what I did had to do with how much money is Corporation A going to have to pay to Corporation B. And while that was good, steady work, I really didn't feel that I was doing much to actually help improve anyone's life. It was just about money most of the time. And so when I first heard about this program, I thought, well, here's something I can do, use some of my legal skills, and actually help people and feel more like you get a little bit more personal reward out of helping people. So that was my initial motivation to get started in this program. And I've definitely, since I've stuck with it for that long, I've definitely felt that I've gotten the reward for that. It's really, really important to me to see the personal impact on the youth, on their parents, and on the victims when they participate in mediations. And I've seen a lot of that. As Judge Groman was saying, they don't get that opportunity when they go to court. And I know that because I've been in court and I've seen that, you go before a judge, you have 5 minutes maybe to give your case. The attorneys do most of the talking. The parties don't get to say much. When we bring them together for an hour, usually on average, maybe a little bit longer, they actually get to hear each other. They get to say something to each other. And I think it has an impact on everyone there. The youth get to hear from the victim directly how the victim was affected by what they did and understand the feelings of what it's like to have somebody put graffiti on your wall or steal something from your house or whatever they did. And at the same time, the victims get to see the youth as something other than just this bad person who did something to them. They get to understand some of what the youth may be going through in their life, but they also get to hear from the youth how they feel afterwards about what they did. Hopefully they show some remorse. And they get to hear from the parent, who was often affected almost as much as the parties themselves. I mean, I see a lot of parents who are very embarrassed by what their child did. I see a lot of parents who are very emotionally distraught that their child did something like this that they never expected they would do. And it's good for the parent also to be able to talk with the victim, to be able to talk with everyone else in the room about what happened. From the perspective of the young person, they're usually the only young person in the room with a parent sitting next to them and a few adults who are complete strangers. So it can be very intimidating. And I try to conduct mediations with that in mind. You have to kind of draw it out of the young person, make it less scary for them to talk, and make it less adversarial, which is what they get if they were in a courtroom. So rather than just let them talk, I usually try to ask them questions and kind of lead them through what happened by asking specific questions, get them to tell their story, but at the same time, think about it themselves and think about what happened, why they did it, how they feel towards the victim now that they've heard the victim's side of the story. And I see an impact there. I see a lot of young people who, when they come into the room, they may have a little bit of an attitude. They may think, I'm wasting my time. Why am I doing this? But once they go through the process and talk about it and listen to the other people in the room, both the victim and their parent or guardian, I see a lot of young people who come to the realization that this is worthwhile, that it's worthwhile to talk to people about it, it's worthwhile to try to make up for what they did. And I see a change in their emotional status. Last week I did 2 mediations at a high school, arising out of the same incident, where there were 2 boys involved in the incident, but we did separate mediations, so they weren't together. The first one was very emotional from the beginning. He was crying during the mediation. And that brought out a lot of feelings for him and for his mother who was sitting next to him. And made the victim, the assistant principal of the school, feel a little bit more, a little bit less adversarial about what happened. The next day, the second youth came in, he was very cold. No emotion, just, okay, yeah, I did this, here's what I did. But once he started hearing the assistant principal talk, he started to open up. He started to feel a little more emotional. He started to have a little more remorse. So both youth, kind of coming from opposite directions emotionally, eventually ended up at a place where they could express their remorse, where they could listen to the victim, where they could understand the impact of what they did. And seeing that on a regular basis in most of the mediations that I do, that's the reward that I get from this. So thank you all for helping to make this possible, and let's keep up the good work.
I have a gift for Larry. There's a nationally recognized mediator and former judge named Ken Cloak, who is the guru of mediation. And his Center for Conflict Resolution runs a training every year, and they give us a scholarship each year to be able to send one of our top mediators or staff to be able to give that experience a really, it's sort of like grad school for mediation. So this year we've selected Larry to offer to send to the training. So I wanted to give you this certificate.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's my honor to introduce Jackie Castor, who's going to then present a special award to Chief Green. And let me say a few words about Jackie Castor. She's the founder and president of the Every Child Foundation, recognized as one of the most efficient charities in Los Angeles area. It awards $1 million each year to a single nonprofit to accomplish their dream project. Several years ago, she awarded it to Sentinel Youth Services. I must tell you that when it was brought to me, my first reaction was, how are we going to accomplish all this stuff? I was a bit skeptical because the Every Child Foundation really puts you through a big vetting process in order to get that $1 million. They don't just give you the $1 million willy-nilly. They put you through a big screening process. And you know, I didn't know whether or not if we'd be able to do it. But I'll tell you what, in retrospect, what Every Child did was bring CYS to a whole different level. Brought us up, made us do things better and differently to be the premier restorative justice organization in California. So I really, really appreciate what Jackie did for us. The Every Child Foundation provided the funds to establish CYS Every Child Restorative Justice Center, the core services of the Juvenile Arrest Diversion Program. Jackie initiated and helped shepherd the creation of this Juvenile Arrest Diversion Program when she arranged a meeting with Chief Charlie Beck to find out if Los Angeles could have an arrest diversion program run by LAPD. Chief Beck agreed, and the JADP was launched, modeled after the highly recognized Miami-Dade County Juvenile Assessment Center. Jackie also serves on the LA County Probation Commission as appointed by Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, and is a tireless advocate for youth and juvenile justice reform in LA and nationally. And you know, I said Jessica was the stick that stirred the coffee, or the stir that sticks the coffee, or whatever the hell, however it goes. And Judge Groman talked about a ladle that stirs something. Jackie Castor stirs this whole youth awakening of how to best serve youth and how to keep them out of trouble and how to make our whole society better. And because of her, great things happen. And it also, I'm not supposed to say this, but she also had a birthday very recently. I think, what, you're 30 years old now, Jackie? Jackie, come on up and accept a little birthday present from I think there's a ladle in there if you want to turn around and take a picture. Blender.
Get you three together.
Oh, we need a picture.
Yeah, just
Picture first.
holding the present.
Okay.
See, you don't get to make this decision. This is the one decision. You got to take the picture first. And now I'm in trouble.
Thank you.
You bet.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to introduce a very special individual, Deputy Chief Bob Green. Not long after the initial group of us had begun designing the pilot juvenile arrest diversion program at the 77th and Southeast LAPD districts, there was a change of command at the South Bureau when Bob, who'd been a commanding officer at 77th, became Deputy Chief. And we were also delighted when he didn't miss a beat in wholeheartedly supporting the pilot's mission to keep as many kids out of the juvenile justice system as possible and instead provide them with effective social services in their own communities, the chance to participate in victim offender mediation, and have no arrests filed on their records if they completed the program. Chief Green just gets it. He said repeatedly, there is rarely a bad kid. The kids we see are just responding to unfortunate circumstances they don't know how to escape. So it was under his leadership that LAPD became, as you heard earlier, the first California Police Department to adopt pre-booking procedures for youth diversion. Chief Green also helped establish the Bureau order that changed internal processes and set the example for several other municipal and school police departments to follow. And as he spread pre-booking diversion across all of South Bureau's 4 divisions, he was promoted once again, this time to lead the city's largest bureau, the San Fernando Valley. Within his first year of command there, Chief Green had introduced pre-booking diversion across the valley. And and he's now already initiated its spread to the Central Bureau. He's been so successful because not only does he understand how to approach the youth, he also fully appreciates the relentless work necessary in changing the long-time culture of law enforcement. He's explained that instead of making the focus on locking up youth who've broken the law, his goal is to teach his officers to try to keep kids at home in their own communities and swamp them with services. To accomplish this culture change, he's supported training for his staff on Team Brain, restorative justice, implicit bias, and de-escalation to better meet the needs of the community. And the proof is in the pudding, because on behalf of the now 1,000+ youth who've already seen their lives turned around because of his leadership, as well as the many victims who've been able to access restitution and receive some closure, it is my enormous privilege to introduce a truly visionary leader, Deputy Chief Bob Green, and to present him with a token of our appreciation.
I'd like to call my partner, Phil Tingery, if I could. So I'm humbled, Jackie, thank you very much. I received this really for both Phil and I, for the work that's gone on in South LA and spread throughout the city. Phil and I are a product of some of the most aggressive policing years in the city of Los Angeles. We were brought into an area in South LA during the 80s and 90s where we were the murder capital of the country, and it was all about suppression. We got it on. We literally put handcuffs on thousands of young people and old people alike in South LA. So we've been blessed with being around long enough to understand what works and what doesn't work. And we can continue to arrest or try and arrest our way out of it. It'll never work. Handcuffs are not the answer. So what we have learned is through diversion programs, especially kids that are at risk, and that's what we need to do, identify those kids that are at risk early on and divert them. And that could be one arrest, it could be 2 arrests, but to change their lives. Because what our current system does, and Judge Gorman, unfortunately she had to leave, she hit on it, 2 months later, that kid stands in front of a judge and gets a booking number and doesn't understand that their life has been changed forever. Whereas the success of Sentinel Youth Services has got them immediate services. It brings out the humanity in that kid and the victim. They've got to go back and face their victim and apologize, which is very difficult for them at times, and then to work out restitution. And that's what our current system doesn't offer that. It doesn't offer that big pause in their life to get them to reevaluate what they have done. And so because of that, with the current system, data tells us that we will see that kid for the next 20 or 30 years in and out of the criminal justice system. And so our ability, and Jackie, I really applaud you because it's not just about the philanthropy, it's about the push to change the overall system when it comes to juvenile justice. I'll talk to cops all the time and I'll ask everybody, hey, everybody in the room that thinks the juvenile justice system currently works, put your hand up. And not a lot of hands are going up. We realize that the current system is broken. It's based on punishment that doesn't work well for kids. And so at the end of the day, we are honored to take this forward. We're passionate about it. I applaud Phil for everything that he's been able to continue to do in South LA and will continue to do. He has done remarkable things in the housing developments with the Community Safety Partnership. And I ask everybody, I appeal to you, fully engage this. I think if, the trick is long-term funding. And that long-term funding from the state and everywhere else comes with data. And so that data that will continue, in my estimation, to only more fully support the program will come with more kids being diverted. And we'll see where it takes us. So from both of us, any comments from you?
I first want to thank Bob. We stepped on the black line at the same time back in 1980. And we've grown up on this department and had a lot of soul searching, a lot of changes. And you can hear from the emotion in Bob, it hits pretty deep. And I think you talked about it the best, that you didn't really feel like you were doing something. When you're an officer and all you're doing is putting people in jail, and you're not seeing any growth or any change, you feel that way. And so, I would be willing to bet that if you ask any of those Southwest officers who got together and did something different and saw not only their primary mission of stopping crime, but also, from my understanding, those young ladies took advantage of those services, and you guys changed lives and kept them out of a system that otherwise would have cost us money and cost victims more crimes. And so I applaud all of you for looking at doing something differently. Vinny is amazing, just amazing. And this is one of the things that we're trying to get the word out. We had a lot of cops with good hearts doing really good things. And they care. And when you approach this job with a good heart and you care, we'll learn together, because it takes all of us, but we'll learn together how to make this a better place. So thank you.
So the upside for Sentinel Youth Services is, Phil and I had everyone, probably the 80 staff and command officers from the LAPD in an auditorium on Monday, and we talked about restorative justice, we talked about Sentinel Youth Services, intervention, things like that. And big exclamation point by the chief of police. So the downside for you is volume is coming. We'll start comstatting the number of referrals. Every month our captains have got to come to a podium and answer questions about all their crime and everything that they're doing in their commands. And one of the things we're going to start talking about is the number of referrals that we get. And so it will increase volume dramatically. So every one of my cops out there, the leadership teams that are pushing this, you guys are changing lives and changing the way that we do work, because law enforcement can't change without the overall system changing around us to give us alternatives other than the handcuffs. So thank you all very, very much. We appreciate it.
I also want to congratulate now Deputy Chief Tingerides. And in absentia, we want to say a big thank you and goodbye to Deputy Chief Scott, who was really phenomenal in helping on this team. And we're very excited to welcome Deputy Chief Tingerides onto our team to help lead our collaborative. So Talitha will be sending out the next meeting date in March, which we will be building around his schedule. And we'll soon be starting a mirror of this collaborative team to support the San Fernando Valley expansion as well. So, but anecdotally, we see about a third of our kids, their behavior is just a result of developmental. Teenagers do dumb, risky things. That's part of just their developmental phase. We can all think back to the dumbest things we did as a teenager. So a lot of what we get is just that. But another third is coming out of really acute trauma. Something bad has happened. Maybe dad just died, and now the kid has all this anger and grief and nowhere to put it. And so he's lashing out at school and getting in fights and now arrested for assault. We've had lots of kids arrested right after dad dies or somebody significant dies on them. And then about another third is real mental health issues or developmental delays. We get kids in special needs kids are arrested at a much higher rate than the general population. So their special needs situation may be impacting impulse control. And they just really may not have that control developed yet. And so we need to work on the right interventions. And so we really look at those underlying needs as well. So to end us on an inspirational note, I wanted to bring Taylor and David back up again. And then we'll close it out. Thank you.
Life arrives with the sun, bearing the gift of a new day. A boy sent to me by spirit, touched by the bliss of a new age. Shift gears to a new page, perspective all reaffirmed, space open and held sacred, like mama's remains in the urn. The longing in your eyes looks to me for truth and dedication, so I'll guide you with my heart, because my mind's a mental patient. The medicine you're destined to create to help heal the world of men is already deep inside your bones. Your real journey lies within. Perfect? I am not. Do not view me as divine. Just a humble man and father, seeking peace through trying times. Your brother in the struggle, a link to a past generation. Take a deep breath, my love. The future needs your inspiration.
Grains of hope still remain. Memories invade my brain. When I seek peace, I feel knee deep in the system, like quicksand, forcing me back to the darkness. But I won't fall in the same mud I did before. I walk on a different road, through a different door, wanting more and more change to come, like people that love me and keep me going, flowing, without me even knowing. I pour my story out like water for the thirsty, from gangs to organic gardens. Now the only dirt I do is with my bare hands and heirloom seeds. My heart screams peace with each rhyme I release. The wind and trees, the birds and bees come together for this ritual, making the disconnect to reconnect. Like warbirds with their souls becoming whole in this cold world. I am warmed by my daughter's hugs, my dirty chucks, and there's still grains of hope. Even when your dad is smoking dope, looking at life through a microscope. I welcome you to this show, where love floats and hearts know they can finally be safe away from that beehive of lies, guns, and knives. This space is called freedom. My ego died because I could not feed them. I am a newborn with a new spirit, a greater mission, the real me.